I was talking about the world order. Now, the world currency was the dollar. People said that was a reserve currency. It was like what you call, if you take a Reserve Bank of India, it is the bank, the ultimate bank, the lender of the last resort is what we call the Reserve Bank of India. And therefore, we also all kept our fingers on the pulse of the dollar, and we all said the lender of the last resort is the Bank of USA. There's no Bank of USA. What I'm being by the Bank of USA is the dollar. The dollar was used extensively. It controlled the world markets. It controlled the marketing of goods. It controlled services. It controlled everything. How you dealt with in the world was, if we have a dollar, how do we handle it? The world currency was the dollar. Now, how did it happen? I think in 1971 or 72, President Nixon removed the dollar from the gold backing. So the dollar became a free currency, freed from the control of that pegged to the gold reserve. When that happened, the additional advantage was the oil producing companies, now we call them the OPEC. They had just found their oil and they were just ruling the world. At that time, they were not ruling the world. I correct myself, they were not ruling the world. The oil was available. All the big companies have set up their companies there. They are pumping out the oil. They were taking out that oil, taking out to their countries, refining it, and selling it back to the same OPEC countries. And slowly people understood the value of that. Now they call it the black gold. And when they understood the value of that oil, that without it, the world will come to a stop, because with the oil there, first you have to run industries, and for running the industries, you have to produce, and for producing you require machines, and preventing the machines from heating up, other than the air conditioning, you require grease. And where does the grease come? It came from petroleum. Then to transport goods, originally you had trains, and to run the trains you had coal, and then they found that coal was pollution, and it was why we are finding it difficult to bring it out of the soil, so they went into diesel. Then they found faster means. When Orville and Wilbur Wright found out the aircraft, slowly they developed the aircraft, and then we went into kerosene for the aircraft, jet engine fuel. Then slowly roads were developed, and when roads were developed, it was used, and it was used to run trucks, and it was used for transportation of goods, transportation of people, and therefore it required diesel. Then they found that the roads if they're built extensively, people can move out in the suburbs, and the central cities can be used for services, and so the suburbs developed, and to travel to the central cities, they required cars, and for cars they required gasoline, and so that is also from petroleum. And to maintain those roads, they required naphtha and asphalt. So where did it come from? That also came from oil. So they found that oil was indispensable in the world. It was like a commodity. It was like I would say, like the reserve dollar, it became a reserve commodity. Without it, your country will not grow. Simple. Period. It stops there. If you do not have oil, then you borrow, steal to get the oil, or you keep on borrowing to get that oil. And for a country to grow, to develop, you require massive amounts of fuel. So that is what has happened. So when the value of the oil was recognized, Then the OPEC countries hit back. In 1973, I think it was Sheikh Yamani of Saudi Arabia who created the first Führer. He jacked up, I think, the rupee, the dollar rate from, I think it was only at $7 or $8 to some $22 or something like that. When that massive hike in the price of a barrel rose, what happened? The whole world came to a standstill. But did it stop there? No, the world continued. People continued to buy. People continued to, use the oil, and they were using the dollar. Because Sheikh Amani said, yes, the dollar is the reserve country of the world, so let me also keep the oil prices pegged to the dollar. So the value of the dollar rose. And when the value of the dollar rose, America understood the value of its dollar. So it signed a pact with the biggest oil producer at that time, which was Saudi Arabia, that nobody can buy oil other than in dollars. So when that happened, the dollar hit the skies. The dollar, already it was reserve currency, and now linked to oil, and it was said to be that without the dollar you cannot buy oil anywhere in the world. So the strength of the dollar grew from, I would say it became a massive, it looks like an atomic bomb. Yes, it became so powerful. The world without a dollar could not be conceived. And therefore, it was like an atomic bomb. It was there, so powerful, as an equipment. It was just in the form of, imaginary currency, but it was ruling the world, the dollar. So when that happened, when everybody knew that the dollar was so powerful, people wanted dollars. Everybody wanted dollars. Now America said, hey, come on, I have the dollar which is now useful for me. I can now bully the world with my dollar. But they never bullied the world. What they did, they started printing the dollar and giving it to every Tom, Dick and Harry, whoever wanted dollars. But then what happened? Somebody was willing to pay, say, instead of 10 rupees, somebody was willing to pay 25 rupees for the dollar. So he gave there. So the person was getting it at 10 rupees, now to have to pay 25 rupees. Now there's another person who was willing to pay 27 rupees. Then somebody was willing to pay 35 rupees. I'm just talking in rupees, I'm not talking in dirhams, I'm not talking in liras, I'm not talking in euros, I'm not talking in yen. I'm talking my rupees. So everybody was willing to buy the dollar at any rate because they had to run the economy. They had to, without oil, they know that they cannot survive. So what happened? When this happened, everybody scrambled for the dollar. And the US was happy. It kept on printing the dollar. If you want $1 billion, yes, take it. Here you want $10 billion, you take it. Give me my rate. So what happened? They started pegging the dollar as the main framework, and each country pegged its money to the dollar. And so what happened? Slowly, the currency rates kept on fluctuating. And when the fluctuation took place, it became huge in very, very many countries which had no money because they were not exporting, they were not producing, they were not delivering. So what were they living off? They were living off the land. So they had to sacrifice so many things to survive, and because they needed the dollar for purchasing the oil, and without the dollar there was no oil. And without oil, your business has come to a full stop. And that is where the dollar started hitting everybody's, I would say, economy in a very huge way. And the American dollar was just appreciated. by everybody. I am a dollar holder. And that is where the power of the dollar rose.